Hi everyone! Okay, first things first, I want to let you know what I've decided as far as my next project for the summer. In the last video a couple of weeks ago, I showed you both this one and the document folder, and I was really divided and asked you to help me decide. And it was actually pretty divided in the comments as well. So I've been thinking about it, and I think I'm just going to try over the summer months to work on both because they are a little different. There's something different to do with these envelopes on the inside of this one, and this is basically just a typical book style journal. So I've set up an extra little work table so that if I start one and then all my supplies are out for this one, I can just leave it on that extra table and then work on this one sort of like simultaneously. So that's my decision with these two journals. I have some ideas. I'm still not sure how I'm going to proceed with some of this project. There's some fabric I want to use to make like the journal itself. I want it to have a fabric cover, and I'm not sure if it's actually going to fit once I make a fabric cover, if that would actually slide in here or if it would be too bulky to even like use the snaps on here. So it might be an envelope flip-flop type thing inside here and then a fabric covered journal on the side. But I do want to thank you for helping me decide, and I will do my best to get this done over the summer. I'm not putting any timeline pressure on myself because summer is hectic usually, and life in general has just been sort of unpredictable around here, so I'm not going to put any extra pressure to finish it in a certain amount of time. Okay, something a little different from me today. I thought I would give you my take on junk journals. I will show you some that I've made in the past. I will tell you what I use them for and the materials that I like to use. I've been making them for, I would say, about 12 years, and when I first started there was just a handful of YouTubers that were offering tutorials and flip-throughs and that kind of stuff. Now there are already tons of videos on this topic, and we all have a little bit of a different take on what these creations are, and that's completely fine. I just want to share mine with you and maybe walk down memory lane and look through some of these older journals. So my definition for me of a junk journal is something that is handmade or something that is already out there and that you alter. So it can be a notebook and then you paste a bunch of stuff in it. But for the most part, my junk journals have been made from scratch. I have made altered books in the past, but my favorite is to start from scratch and create a new book. And my very loose guideline of calling it a junk journal, let's say when I'm listing it or showing it on YouTube, I call it a junk journal if at least 50% of the materials in the book are recycled or repurposed, or that they're items that I know I won't have a use for other than putting them in here. The first example for me is a true junk journal. I made it with junk mail that would have ended up in the recycling bin, and a dessert box for the cover. And then I added all kinds of just little extra things. I made it to store Happy Mail that I was getting from swaps and just as little gifts from people that I knew in the junk journal community. So that was the main purpose of this one. And yeah, it's just all kinds of junk mail for the pages. So I do have a full flip through of this one. So this was a thank you card when I made a purchase from this artist. A coaster that was gifted to me in a swap. Another card from someone. And you can do whatever you like with junk mail like this. You can cut out the images if you want. You can even paint these. Acrylic paint goes on really well on the glossy junk mail. So you can actually cover this and do some journaling. So there's all kinds of ways to use junk mail. This is a flyer. So this is just an example of, to me, what an actual true junk journal is. This was the junkiest one that I've made. This one here is a combination of magazine pages and pattern paper, and some junk sort of thrown in there. Some pamphlets. And there's also a flip through of this one. So those will all be linked below if there is a flip through of anything I'm showing you here, so that you can go have a closer look. This is a dust jacket from an old book. And when I talk about using items that I wouldn't have used elsewhere, I want to mention that, you know, some people do go to the dollar store, or they order off of Temu and AliExpress to get, you know, what they call junk journal supplies. So, for example, this is like a receipt book, and I probably got this at a dollar store or at the thrift store in one of those bundled bags. Our Value Village here tends to bag up a bunch of different office supplies together into bundles, so that's a great way to get things like that. And they're great for journaling on, so I like to use those. Alright, so you can go have a look at this one at the link below. I also have the tutorial for how I made this cover in a way that you got two pieces. You bind this signature into the inside piece, and that way you don't have the threads on the spine. And this one is an example of one that doesn't follow my 50-50 guideline. So this one here is a file folder cover, which the file folder was from an old cabinet. But most of the pages in here are from paper pads. But they are pages that I probably wouldn't have used in another journal anyway, so I try to make use of most of my paper pads. When you buy them, there's so much paper in the pads that you want to try and use as much of it as possible. And a lot of the paper in here was also just ink sprayed or jelly plate things. This one was mainly to use up some of my smaller digital tags and cards. When I design things, I like to print a sample just so that I can see the layout to make sure the colors are good, that the placement of the images is good. So I'm left with a lot of printouts, and I like to make use of them. If I don't put them in journals that I sell, this is a way to have a souvenir of them and somewhere nice to look at them. So I do have a flip through of this one as well. A lot of painty backgrounds. These vellum sheets from a paper pad. So that's what this one is. You can go have a look at this video if you like. This one is also, for me, a true junk journal, and this one was made for the purpose of being a glue book. So the cover is an old Reader's Digest hardback. The spine was broken, so I used my cinch and put the coil binding on there. And I used just an assortment of things such as these cards that you get in the mail sometimes with a thank you note on them, tags, envelopes, these paint samples, and they make great bases for gluing on. So this is a glue book I started a long time ago, and I haven't gotten too far in it. Greeting card, jumbo tag, so we're kind of overlapping between what the junk journal is made of and what I use it for, and that's because I use different things based on what I'm going to use it for. So this is the Easy Twine binding, and I also have a video for that. But this one here I made with this because I want the person to be able to remove the pages if they want to, so if they need to lay them flat, because I am making these as art journals. So there's a lot less writing surface and more artsy surface for you know, making collage on or painting and drawing. First and foremost, I think what's important is that you use what you already have, and if you don't already have the supplies you need, then you can decide what it is you're making the journals for and then shop based on that. So if you're someone who wants to have journals that have a lot of writing space, then you would definitely be looking for more lined paper or grid paper, ledger paper, and not so much looking to have paper that already has patterns and images on. So that's an example that for me would be an art journal. This one here is very similar, and it's mostly patterned paper and book pages that have images. So this would make a nice art journal. This is one that I just made for myself. It's going to be a kind of a art journal collage book. I haven't even finished the inside yet, but I have some eco-dyed paper and pattern pages. I want to do inky, painty kind of finishes on here, and maybe do some collage of gel plate prints. I have a stack of those that I want to use up. So this makes a nice base for that. And I don't have to be so mindful of what's in the background. I could just add what I want on top. And with this one, because I'm not committed yet to where I want the pages to be, I simply used a ribbon, or I mean seam binding, and kind of just wrapped like the twine binding technique. I just did it that way, so they're just sitting in there in this spot, and if I decide I want to move them, I can move them. And if I don't, then I can bind this once I'm done making the journal. This junk journal is one that I made so that I can store some of my favorite postage stamps. I have collected quite a few of them over the years, and I just have some favorites, and I keep just putting those aside, and when I have a few moments I add them to this book. So in this one I've used book pages, old vintage paper, some patterned paper from paper pads, and the cover is a vintage cover. And so I do have some pages in here that I've added stamps to. It just takes a while to do. It's not something that I sit down with regularly, although I wish I had more time to do that. This is a very old invoice. It's like onion paper. Love it. Here's a nice spread. Old envelope. This is ledger paper from 1920. It's very, very flimsy, brittle. Another spread. There's just something wonderful about postage stamps, isn't there? I could just look at them for hours and hours. So I have a full flip through of this journal prior to starting to fill it with stamps. This is one of those end papers, and I just added it on top of the page. Just really like this one. Here's another spread. I just find that they look really good when you pick a color and then you just go with that main color. It would be too hard to divide them into categories or themes. This was in an old book I had, and the stains were actually on there. I didn't add those. So I thought that was pretty cool, because some of us actually make these on purpose in our journals. This one here was more of a themed spread, Christmas and winter. There we go. Oh. And this is done with the hidden spine. Okay, the last two I'm going to show you are journals that I made for the purpose of actual journaling. So there's more writing space in these. A lot of times when I use my kit in there, I try to compensate and balance that between, you know, consuming new paper and ink for the pages, and then, you know, offsetting that with recycled stuff that I have, or that I've been able to find in thrift stores. Adding lace on the edges, something that a lot of us like to do. This is scrap of paper, so I like to do that on the ends. Sometimes I don't always do that, and I'll show you in this one. This one here is another example that for me, when I'm done, it will be more of a vintage junk journal, because I used a cover that is quite old. This one was falling apart. There was no spine left. So I have an actual full book as the cover that I was able to sew the signatures in. And then this front piece and this back piece are glued to that other cover. And my plan is to add some merchandise tags from clothing and other things that I have from the household, some ephemera from the vintage thrift stores. And when this one is done, eventually I'll be able to flip through it. So I think I covered everything I wanted to today. I could keep talking. I fell in love with junk journals all those years ago, and I haven't stopped making them since. And this is just like a small sampling of what I've made. I have some in storage, and I have sold many, many, many over the years. I hope this was helpful. If I missed anything, just feel free to ask me in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you guys back here in about 2 weeks with hopefully some progress on the summer projects. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Bye.